This is Josiah's friend that has come to see us in the restaurant.
I am very allergic.
It's a British cat, right, Andrew?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Welcome again to Expat American, and again I'm with my expat Briton, Andrew, and we are in Moscow, Russia, but standing outside the Old English Court. And today we want to try and answer the question, is Russia like Britain? Like in our first video that I did, it was, is Russia like America? Well, today we want to compare and contrast Russia and Great Britain. So Andrew, some of the subscribers said you didn't sound British enough in the last video, so if you can work on that, that'd be helpful. The first question I wanted to ask you, because everyone watching this is a human, is what is the difference between Russia and Britain in regards to food?
So, food is very diverse in the UK. People there like curry from India, fish and chips, potato mash, and beef. Whereas here, things are a bit different. People like pickled food and carbs and dairy. And so you would probably notice that food in Russia, if you are from the West, feels a lot more bland than food from the UK or in Europe or even America as well.
I'd agree with that. Yeah, I've been to London twice, and my conclusion was fish and chips is the main course. Is that true?
Yeah, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I'm aware in the UK, in recent years, the most popular dish is now curry.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
What is this Old English Court in Moscow, Russia, in Zaryadye Park?
So this is a building that was built in the 16th century, which was used to help facilitate trade relations between Russia and Great Britain as relations began to improve.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I find it encouraging that we have, you know, a building called the Old English Court in Moscow.
So as we were walking around the building, you could see this part, which I'm guessing wasn't restored. As you can see, the rest of the building is white, but here, this is probably part of the original setup of how things were built back when it was erected in the 16th century.
Oh, yeah. So the Old English Court here is right next to and inside of Zaryadye Park, which, like I said before, is the newest park in Moscow. And I thought that the Old English Court was new, but apparently it was here forever and they built Zaryadye around it. And I'm continuing to go like this for Andrew and the cameraman Josiah, who is trying to hide from the shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, very steep stairs.
What are you videoing? Nice.
Wow, nice view. The snow outside.
I think this is where the kitchen is. So, this most likely was how some of the accounting or trade was done, by weighing gold and silver coins. Very interesting artifact.
Look at this ship over here. Pretty cool. I like the map. What's the map, bro? It says Europe.
It's a map of Europe, yeah. With numbered cities, so look for a number and you find a city. Nation, civilization. What else is there? Medieval, total war. So you can't go past it.
Am I too big for this place? So being in this old building, it makes me think about how old, again, is Russia, like my one video I did, and how old is Britain. And I'm thinking like 1,000 years each. What do you think, Andrew?
So it depends on what Britain we're talking about, because of course, I mean, there was the Roman Empire when it was called Britannia.
Right.
But then when the Romans left, for example, there were other, there were Saxons, Vikings, Normans, and so it depends on what period you want to talk about in terms of its history.
Right. So cool in here, though. I'm glad Moscow has this that we can look at.
So Josiah, can you tell us where Middle Earth is on this map?
Yeah, it's over that way actually. It looks like it's Latin, but it's hard to say. I never studied it.
I'd like to have something like this on my wall. It just looks cool.
Of Middle Earth?
Well, it could be, sure, but I meant something real. I like history.
It's so funny.
What's that? Oh wow, interesting.
Americans will love this. Especially in California.
We're gonna head to a British restaurant that I found in Moscow. And on our way, my question was, I thought of, how do city designs in Britain compare to, let's say, city designs in Russia?
So it depends on the city, because, I mean, as you can see, Moscow seems like any old city that has been around for a long time, whereas St. Petersburg is relatively young. It was designed to be European by Peter the Great, whereas, in the UK, most cities are very old. There wasn't much city planning per se, and so of course I think the main difference would be in its design. But then, of course, the vibe that you get from Moscow and from London are pretty similar. They're both very old, but both have a lot of business going on. So they're busy cities.
And what do you think as far as outside cities, like small towns and open roads? How do they look the same, or do they look different?
So, well, that's actually the part that I'd say there'd be the biggest difference. So, in the UK, there are a lot of nice little towns. Whereas in Moscow, there are a lot of...
Russia, you mean?
In Russia, sorry. There are a lot of little villages and towns, but like, for example, there'd be like the Golden Ring, and that has its history, these little towns that have monasteries and convents.
Like Yaroslavl.
Yeah, or Rostov.
Okay.
So that's kind of the main difference that you.
So what cities are you from, or have you lived in Britain?
In London and in Birmingham.
Nice.
So Andrew, what's with this tape everywhere we go, making us go around?
So in quite a lot of places in Moscow and most cities that have a lot of snow, this is used as a precaution to stop people from walking too close to the building, because sometimes you get frozen snow dropping off of the rooftops. And if you're unlucky, and there have been people who have died by walking beneath these places, but you could get hit by a big lump of snow.
Okay, my wife and I were talking about that, so that is true. Interesting.
What do you think as far as clothes in UK versus Russia? Is it different? Is fashion different? Do they wear different things?
So with regards to fashion, I'd say that Russians and people in the UK dress pretty similarly, because people here love the same Western brands that people love in the UK and in the US. So yeah, people are quite similar in that regard, but when it comes to like winter, and people are cold, and you can see, walking around Russia, a lot of people in clothes that you probably wouldn't see in the US or the UK because it never gets that cold. So yeah, I guess in that regard there is a difference in fashion choices because there's a different context in terms of climate.
So I just realized we're on the Moscow City Walk as well.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So Josiah, you had an interesting point that our American viewers might find curious.
English taught and used here is British English, not American English. I have lost and will lose more points in university using American English in papers instead of British English.
Wow. I hope this is good, Andrew.
We'll probably go tomorrow. I think we'll go with Joe's. We'll meet up.
Ready, Josiah? A toast to Andrew, the expat Brit, and Josiah, the cameraman from America. Well, Andrew, what would you say is the difference between the family dynamic for a Russian family versus a British family?
It's very hard to pinpoint the biggest differences because, well, I personally didn't have a typical upbringing, but based on what I've observed, in the UK, there's a lot more laid-back attitudes towards upbringings, whereas in Russia, there's a lot more kind of fussing around and a lot more attention to just anything. For example, how a kid does at school, and that kind of stuff.
So what kind of beer do you have there, Josiah?
Got like a cherry cider, I think he called it.
Aha, that's what Andrew has too?
Yeah.
Okay, I have the man's beer, the real beer, the yellow Zholty Piva.
Basic and tasteless.
It's the best kind. So mine's 400 rubles. Josiah and Andrew, their Piva, their beer is 420 rubles. 420 rubles. So here is our appetizer, which is 490 rubles. And what is this exactly, Andrew?
It's something with cheese and bacon.
Aha, they were out of fish and chips, so we're settling for this. Man. So it looks like a fancy cheese stick cooked fish and chip style. And there's bacon in it. Вкусно. So just so the Russians don't destroy me in the comments, we said Russian food is bland. What I mean is it's not spicy compared to American food or perhaps food from the West, but it is very tasty food. So I just remembered I actually have something British. I asked Andrew to bring something British, but he said he doesn't have anything British. I have this bottle opener keychain I've been carrying around for a couple of years now. Aurora bought it for me in Disney, and it says United Kingdom on it. But anyway, the last thing I was thinking, Andrew, is what do you think personality-wise would be some of the things that are perhaps different about Brits versus Russians?
Yeah. So the biggest difference, I'd say, is there definitely are contrasting personalities when it comes to Russia and the UK. If you look at the UK, there are a lot of people who are very friendly outside, very good at small talk. If you walk past somebody, you'll say hi to each other. But they're not as deep when it comes to, being personal and relational and in terms of like deep friendships. Whereas in Russia, it's the other way around. On the outside, Russians are very hard and they won't be friendly outside, but when you get to know Russians and when you get to talk to them, you become the best of friends and you get very deep.
Right. I would absolutely agree with that. I think it's the same between America and Russia when you're comparing the personalities, for sure. All right, so that's it. What do you think? Is Russia like Britain? Click like, subscribe, ring the bell notification, and click up here to see what happens next.